I'm not identifying myself as a doctor, and I'm not suggesting people do anything we're about to discuss in place of what a doctor would tell you or using professional medicine.
Hello and welcome to Peaceful Rebellion. Well, we're here with Phil Milburn. Hello, Phil.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome, Phil. And Phil is here to share with us, and I know very little about it. He's shared a little bit with me about something that he's got that is going to help with pain relief. Yes, is that right, Phil? Have I understood that right?
Well, what I'm presenting today is this. It's a little known device referred to as the Orgonometer, which is based off the works of Wilhelm Reich. Have you
Hmm.
heard of him at all?
I have indeed, and I have filled my house with orgonite.
Oh, yes, I recall you said that.
Hmm.
Well, Orgonite refers to a spiritual little rock or crystal that you get to improve mood, correct?
Yeah. Well, it's to protect you as well. I've got my router covered with them and everything like that.
Yeah, to ward off EMF pollution. I think I've got one in my bedroom.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, in the case of the Orgonometer, what we did following Reich's research, we should probably cover that. He was of the belief that you could heal people via electromagnetic currents. And I zeroed in on this great hypothesis. I'm aiming to get stress tested in a university at some point. And what I did was this. I took a composite of 000 non-aluminium steel wool and layered it with pure cotton. We did that 3 times. So it's three of each. And in this case, it's 4 layers of cotton, which respectively are diamagnetic and ferromagnetic, or organic and inorganic. What we see here, well, you won't see it, but in the air, you'll see electromagnetic energy being brought into this thing before it is projected out of here with nowhere else to go. Now, what does this have to do with pain relief is subject to studies. I found out that the all physical sensations relating to pain and pain relief are governed by electromagnetic signals given off by your nerve endings, which interact with your brain in the interest of issuing the type and severity of pain to
Mhm.
motivate you to do something about it. That, in essence, is the simplified version of how pain works. And what we did was this. We pointed the organometer at people, and the hypothesis is that it projects an electromagnetic frequency with such a close resemblance to the pain relief response of the human body that your brain cannot tell the difference. And subject to research with help from Bennett Tanton of Broadcasting Seeds, he got people together because he does peer support for veterans,
Uh-huh.
and across the board, 100% of people tested said that they felt less pain following use of an organometer. In fairness, that I'm not saying the pain went away to nothing, and the sample size was an admittedly paltry 5, but that was our first experiment of that kind. So, the document itself does not identify itself as definitive proof or aiming to be such, but it is a constructive and encouraging step in the right direction.
Hmm.
So, subject to experimentation, I have been doing this for years. I've given it to more people than I could identify, but we've had traction in Poland, Pakistan, the United States, England, where I'm based. Just off the top of my head, we've had traction in those such countries. Canada and large parts of the southern United States are interested. I've got about 4 or 5 people in the process of creating one. And in the case of Poland, I was contacted by somebody who had been reading about my research. This was in the very early stages. And they told me that they were suicidally depressed with back pain up here in the upper back. And I talked them through creating one, and they felt a huge sense of relief and took up bike riding, have been able to get into a relationship since. It's been hugely uplifting to see because both of us were in a bad space for different reasons. And that person even dragged me out of a dangerously low headspace the next year. That was most reassuring of experiences.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
So I've gone on fairly long there. Have you any questions?
Well, first of all, I've got a comment because what you've described there, obviously, when I was creating Orgonite, I looked at all of the Wilhelm Reich work that he did, and what I wanted to do was to create the cabin which is a larger version of that, which you used to create. And so I still have that project in mind, and maybe this will help me because I've been saving up because I've got two standard poodles, and I have to shave them all the time because the hair grows. It's like wool, and so I've been saving it up. I've been
Ah, that's
saving it up
clever.
to
Yeah.
use, so I've got enough when probably it'll take the whole life of the dogs, and then I'll have enough to make a cabin. So this will be great for me to understand basically what I've got to do. Yeah. Okay. So you said, I know you've said this in the email as well. You're not doing this for financial gain. So
No, no, not at all.
why, what's your motivation? Why are you doing this?
My motivation was losing my dad to cancer on August 31st, a few years ago. And on top of that, it's wanting people to be spared of suffering. Like that girl from Poland was in an extremely poor state. We're fairly close since, me and her. And, wanting to help out people who are in not so extreme conditions, even everyday pains, arthritic or um, what I'm trying to recall the term osteoarthritis was
Yeah.
mentioned, and oh yeah, trigeminal neuralgia, that being the worst pain on medical record. That's not
Yeah.
mild. That's I'm told it's worse than having a blowtorch shoved up there.
Wow. Yeah.
And one key reason is I've been told off of a large and a growing amount of women and girls that it has been known to inhibit period pain under the right conditions. Now,
Okay.
there are ways for this to go wrong, chief among them being if you have a copper IUD, that being something made to make, you know, some of the female experience easier. If it's made especially out of copper because of the conductive capacities, it tends to retain and therefore overdose a person on orgone energy, which is a side effect that can happen if you overuse it, which is quite difficult. You could fall asleep with one of these on and probably be okay.
Yeah.
But if you have a copper IUD, that's another story.
Okay.
If you're a radiation poisoning survivor, like you survived Chernobyl or Fukushima, probably never want to interact with these things. Or if you're in close proximity to a nuclear power plant, very close to an electrical plant, or in an urban area with high pollution, second guess it. There are circumstances in which you would not want to do it. And if you're skeptical, maybe pointed at a limb or something not very important to get a feel for it, take the
See if
baby
it's okay.
steps.
Yeah.
But I am chiefly interested, it being so ubiquitous. I want it to be used to reduce period pain. And we're getting traction across the world. In the United States, bare minimum of 2 women are using it. In England, I don't know because I've been doing this for so long and we weren't tracking it in the early days. In the United States, there's multiple people interested. And
Hmm.
that's just what I know of. I do know from our channel analytics that we're surprisingly popular over in Indonesia. So there's a high chance by the sheer amount of traffic that at least one Indonesian lady is using it, but I couldn't present that as a hard and fast fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, what I'm interested in is understanding. Obviously, you're gonna talk us through the actual. Do you have a manual of how you make this or something like that?
I've got a how-to guide on my channel, Anomaly Research Labs, on how to create one of these. I've got a how-to guide on how to create a blanket that you can physically get into, which might be very useful for your purposes. You might find
Yeah.
yourself producing 2 of them and then a smaller one. You readjust the dimensions a little to build your orgone accumulator chamber.
That was what it was called, the accumulator chamber. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I think you might find that useful, simplifying some of what you do.
Yeah. 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 So we'll put obviously your website and all the information's in the video information here. These little things, would it make a difference if they were like 10 times bigger? Would they be 10 times more powerful?
The size is not as relevant as how many layers feature within them. So
Okay.
you could theoretically have one that was truly gargantuan and had 2 layers and it would effectively do nothing for you. Versus you could have one a bit bigger than this that had, say, 6 layers. That most certainly would be more profound. And, by most certainly, I'm not trying to draw anyone off of following your doctor's advice. Forgive me for saying that on repeat.
Yes.
But the thing you have to get right is how many layers do you have and what environment are you using it in? If you're close to a nuclear plant or high pollution, that would be a probably don't.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I live in the countryside with nothing. So,
Well, you'd be in a very optimal space. I mean, Reich chose Orgonon, the area just south of the Canadian border, where he did because it was prime conditions. It was rural, it was in the back of nowhere. It was, it was prime land for his experiments, for the nature of them. One thing I should say is I don't know when this interview will be coming out, but by June 15th, I aim to do a release of the Heiko experiments of the 1980s. Heiko is, well, he's dead now, sadly. To my knowledge, the only actual qualified medical professional to do some structured research in orgone since the closure of Orgonon and the jailing of Reich in the 1950s, which I'll endeavour to address in a moment. However, the results were incredibly reassuring, and the claim was made by Heiko that a lot of people who were written off as terminally ill, as was that Polish girl, the doctors told her that's not something you're going to recover from. They, a lot of the time, not all, but a lot of the time, made recoveries beyond what they were expected to do. So life expectancy of 4 months in all but two cases, I believe, was more than that. And some of them walked away totally fine and never needed support. Sorry, needed some continued support, but lived fairly long lives and died somewhere in their 70s or 80s.
okay. Mm. Okay. A question for you. Just it was something that you said about if people live in very built-up areas, maybe you're in an apartment block and there's Wi-Fi everywhere and cables and everything. Would they be able to do something like this, like, go on a country walk and then use it whilst they're out away from all of that pollution? Or is it an effect that continues, you carry with you?
You could very easily take the thing out to a countryside walk, and that would be optimal. Don't
Yeah.
expose it to water. You don't want it getting rained on, but there would be a lot of practicality in what you're describing there.
Okay. Okay.
And as for what you're describing there, are you asking me how long the pain relief lasts for?
No, I'm asking, for example, the orgone energy, and it's called orgone energy. I'm
Yeah.
saying, yeah, yeah. So it then enters into the body. Does it remain there, or does it does it pass through and that's it? For example, if I was in the countryside for half an hour and I had it on my body, and then I went back home, would it still be in my body, or would it have dispelled?
Well, orgone energy is always in your body by its very nature. So
Okay.
the answer is yes. But if you're talking about the concentrated bonus you get from using one of these things, that would be more like drinking water. You'd have to redo it periodically.
Okay.
It would go back down to its baseline level sooner or later. And depending on the mood you're in, if you're highly depressed or sick, you tend to retain less of it in Reichian thinking.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, death is represented by when that is completely gone from your system in his thought.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned that he was put into prison. Why was that?
Well, after gaining significant traction, I'll talk a bit through Reichian school of thought. It all began, if you can believe it, with a critique of psychoanalysis when Sigmund Freud left the root of the sex drive rather loosely defined. And as to whether or not it was a physiological sensation or a mental phenomenon, Reich made the point that that was just you couldn't get a clear picture reading psychoanalysis. However, he critiqued it and he said it's partly physical and it's partly mental, and here are the specifics. The response by Sigmund Freud was to shout him down, and his wife Anna Freud joined in and led riots, well, not riots, but retaliation against him, and even denounced him to the Gestapo. He made a narrow escape to Norway and then left there just before it was taken over. So twice over, he barely got away from going into a gas chamber. And as to the motive of Freud, I don't know for sure if it was petty jealousy or if Freud was trying actively to breed a school of thought in which people were more malleable. Because if you don't understand the sex drive, you're an easier target for manipulation at the government level or the personal one. When he was in Norway, he performed bion experiments where, well, bions were, what he did was he would take matter, put it into a Faraday cage, try and isolate it to get it away from being exposed to any sort of phenomenon, get it into as much a vacuum as possible. But subject to his experiments, he found that was not possible because orgone permeated the universe. So he stopped trying to isolate it and tried to aggregate it, doing the closest you could do to such a thing. And his theories, it was chiefly his talks around sex and relationships that led to people shouting him down, not his scientific stuff. And he was cast out of Norway. He got on board the very last major ship that was leaving the country and made for New York, which was too polluted. So he then moved over to almost to Canada to what would come to be known as Orgonon in Rangeley, Maine, where that is where the bulk of his golden age took place. And he was gaining traction, and people were talking about these boxes. Those who sat in them said they felt their mood lift. And I can attest to that. As somebody with two cases of CPTSD, it is good for just stick it on your stomach region to get the symptoms to calm down.
Okay.
Although there is something of a risk you'll come off as a bit drunk and rowdy. I don't know if
Okay.
that's a hard. That is something that I've noticed in a lot of people. Some people say it feels like I've had one or two glasses of wine.
That can't be
And
bad then, can it?
no, not at all. Be cautious about driving or operating machinery within a time of having used these things. Like, just carefully judge your feelings and be responsible if you're going to
Sure.
do such a
Tell
thing.
me what CPSD is. I haven't heard that before.
CPTSD,
Oh, CP.
complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh, wow. It's getting
Uh,
longer. That name's getting longer every time I hear it.
yeah,
Yeah.
once from child abuse and a second time from that Polish girl having to talk her off of a ledge. I'm not blaming her at all,
Sure.
but it
Absolutely.
it did stuff to me. I'm not going to get graphic because there were some really nasty elements to that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Nastier than what you see on the surface of it, which itself was pretty awful.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Okay. And this has helped as well. So we're not just talking about physical discomfort, are we? We're talking about maybe emotional discomfort as well,
Yeah, it can be emotionally uplifting to use. I mean, the most common use of the organometer at Organon was just to get your mood going,
right?
just to feel better. That was as good a reason as any. And in the case of why he was jailed, it was because, let me see, the 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 rumor was that he was selling these things and trying to draw people away from cancer treatment in order to use them. Hence why I insist don't take my advice over an actual doctor's. And as to whether or not he was doing that, I don't think that he was. I think that his books made the point that, uh, let me think about how to phrase this. I need to do a very careful, bear with me.
Sure.
He made the point that a lot of the symptoms of fascism appeared in the symptoms of cancer and said that the same things that you might use to ward off a bad government were highly transferable, subject to some changing of the wording, could be used to fend off cancer, like freedom or honesty.
Okay.
Because if you're pathologically lying, that tends to indicate high stress, for one
Yeah.
example. And it was true that Reich was treating people with cancer. Now, from what I can understand, he was taking people and he was taking people who were in stage 4, like go home and die. He was
Yeah.
having them over to do experiments with, but he wasn't trying to draw people off of establishment treatment.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Now, as to whether or not I'm wrong there, that is subject to reading, but that is my interpretation. And the main thing they got him on was that uh, an FDA inspector posing as a customer asked for an Orgone Accumulator, which was shipped across state lines, and that triggered some sort of criminality in a way that was lawful within a state, was not lawful between them. And what I'll highlight there is that the same thing happened to Din Shah Gardiali. That's a story for another time, but I just want to make the point this is something of a recurring theme, this interstate shipment law.
Okay. Okay. However, what's also the case, and I'll say this very carefully, but just about everybody who has worked on alternative helping of people who don't have any other way of getting better, they generally get attacked. When you were talking about what he was doing, working with people who are in stage 4 cancer, I was thinking about Dr. Hammer, the German doctor, I don't know if you know his work,
I
but
do vaguely recognize the name.
yeah, and he did exactly the same. He was linking the cancers with emotional situations and life experiences and things like that. And he was saying if you can sort that trauma out, quite often it also sorts out the physical aspect. But then he got put into
Yeah.
prison and
I mean, the thing is, when was this with Dr. Hammer? Was this something like the 1920s or something? Because it
no,
has
no,
to
no,
be.
this was the 80s, 90s.
Hang on. When is it a fact at this point that high emotional stress and damage means you're more likely to get cancer? Is that something that is established fact by this stage?
I have no idea, but certainly that was what if you look at Hammer's work, he has cancer type, emotional issue that needs to be resolved, and he's got them for all of them. And of course, because it was quite, it was way alternative. He was attacked. He was even arrested here in Spain. When he came to Spain, he was arrested. So it's
Wow.
kind of like a theme. There's a theme there, you know.
Okay, well, I at least believe that high stress means worse chance against cancer. It wouldn't shock me at all if that was confirmed anywhere.
Sure.
And Reich was an injunction was served to Reich in which a letter was given saying two things. One is that the orgone accumulators don't work and they're ineffective. The second dictation was that the FDA inspectors had to oversee him, his son, and his friend Bill destroy the accumulators so that they were no longer effective.
Okay. So they don't work, but you've got to destroy them so they don't work.
Yes, that is what was dictated to him.
Uh-huh.
And he went at them with an axe, and then he went at them with kerosene and a match. Following this, the FDA made a point of incinerating his books, just like the Nazis did. They were doing active book burnings. And some of Reich's work was actually chucked by Parisian students in riots during the hippie era.
Right.
One could reasonably make the point that a lot of Herbert Marcuse and Erich Fromm's philosophies around free love were heavily Reichian inspired.
Hmm.
But that's a bit besides the point, as I chiefly focus on the pain relief.
Sure.
And Reich died 3 years later, slightly before he was due for release as a result of a heart attack. He was 60 years old. Now, a lot of people have theorized that he was killed off somehow in the interest of shutting him up. And honestly, subject to my research, I think he actually wasn't, because use of the Orgone Accumulator at the rate he was using it, add to the fact he wasn't in tip-top shape physically. It is reasonable to believe that he kind of brought that heart attack on himself. I don't want to go to bat for the establishment, but I think they might actually be telling the truth in this case.
A clock that's broken is right twice a day, so sometimes it happens.
My clock upstairs is exactly that.
So Phil, let's get into the mechanics of this thing.
Yeah.
How much does it cost to make?
Approximately £8, something pathetic.
Okay, super. And could anybody do it?
If you have it in you to make a loaf of bread, if you're that handy and you're that rich, you're in. The
Okay.
biggest complication would be what kind of implants do you have and in what environment will you be using it?
Okay.
And again, I don't profit from this. I'm going to make the point that, yeah, I do have a Patreon for people who are financially stable enough who can comfortably support me with zero risk incurred to themselves. From them, sometimes I will take some money, but I've never put anyone down the barrel in the interest of getting an orgone accumulator, despite some key opportunities. And I think that girl from Poland was half expecting some sort of extortion or exploitation and was a little shocked when it didn't turn up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're surrounded by people who want to give you something, but at a very high price. So it's unusual that you hear saying this is what it is. And so somebody can go to your website, download the how-to, and then just make it. Is that right?
I don't have a website, but I have a YouTube channel,
Our
and
YouTube channel.
you can either watch or optionally download the video. and you can follow the instructions there. And the most expensive part would be buying the 000 non-aluminium steel wool.
Yeah.
That would be the hardest bit, the price of which could be maybe 6-ish quid. The rest, you could just cut up some old clothes. If you need cotton, get some clothes you don't want. Give them one wash first, but that's one means of doing it. And a tin, this used to be, I ate potatoes out of this thing before I used it for this.
So it's an actual, is it a tin that you're using? You're coating a tin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's Tesco's potatoes.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
As long as you'd want to do some research to try and confirm to yourself that you're dealing in non-aluminium, stainless steel is heavily preferred. Aluminium and especially copper are advised against.
Right. So most tins, if I remember, maybe they've changed now, but most tins are metal, aren't they? The tins that you get peas and potatoes and things.
Yeah,
Steel.
things to that effect. I went with potatoes because they're a bit bulkier, whereas peas and the likes are quite minuscule.
Yeah. Okay. And tell me, in terms of usage, what would be in your, imagine somebody's got some discomfort, maybe it's arthritis or whatever. How frequently should they be using this?
Just put it on for as long as you need it to, and then pick it back up when the pain returns. I mean, it varies from person to person, so that's not so hard and fast. The Polish girl could go for 2 days and not even blink an eye. Other people have to be essentially have it hard attached, or some people have been known to sleep with them, which you can
Yeah.
do. Don't, there is a point where you're overdoing it, especially with the thing you're trying to create, the big box. But these things you can be a bit more liberal with. So that's just a bit of a toss up depending on your dependency.
Okay. And you mentioned a blanket as well. You could make a blanket then that you would put over yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, you can get a blanket that is just about big enough for me, 6'2", to cover myself fully in.
Right. Okay. Would that be just as effective as making a box? Depends on the layers, yes?
Uh, no, it would be less effective. You want to have some empty space in there because oh yeah, one thing I should have mentioned earlier. This more effective than this.
Right.
Physical contact will not nullify, but it'll weaken the effect.
Okay. Okay. So better to have it. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is and again, you've chosen that shape. Is that shape fundamental? The tin shape?
No, theoretically, I think it's optimal, but it's not a hard and fast rule. You could potentially make a helmet and wear the thing. If you had a little space above here, like where the orgone fabric was not there to pad it out, you could
Yeah.
potentially wear a helmet if you wish.
Right.
This is optimal because there's a bit of space in there for it to aggregate, so
Yeah.
the length of it makes it a bit more powerful. Whereas if it stopped about there, it would be much weaker.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what I'm thinking about is like somebody, let's say, who's got tremendous back pain, but it's round the back and it's in a difficult spot, to be able to hold that on. Um, I'm just wondering if they could perhaps make something that was more like a belt with spaces or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there are orgone quilt pads that you can make. It's as simple as get a little fabric made of, the triple layer of dia and ferromagnetics, and then just strap the thing onto whatever you need, and that can do the job.
Yeah.
Or just get a friend involved. I mean, if you can go a while without using it, just have a friend stick it near your back for maybe 1 minute or two, depending on how badly you need it. And that's
Okay.
one viable way of doing the job.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, you reached out to me you said, would you be interested in interviewing me and talking about this? Um, at the time, I didn't realize what it was you were talking about, but it was a passion for me. I've got my garden filled with cloudbusters as well, using orgonite and
Got one
copper
in the
pipe.
garage.
Yeah. So I love all of it, and I truly believe that there's something to it. As you said, this doesn't replace medical intervention. Of course, it doesn't. And we say that because you've got to say it, but also it's as an addition, it can help such a lot.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, actually, don't use it in place of cancer treatment, and don't use it alongside either, because if you mix that with chemo, you might exacerbate it if Reichian thinking is correct. So,
Yeah.
don't use it in place of or alongside.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you are in stage four, however, and you've had time to let most of the chemo out of your system, and the doctor is saying this one's not going to get better, at that point, I'd be willing to step in.
Yeah. You've got nothing to lose then, have you really?
Yeah, because, I mean, worst case scenario, nothing happens.
Yeah. Of
But
course.
by
Yeah.
that point, it couldn't aggravate anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, there's something I wanted to ask. You say
Right.
you're a cloud buster. Do you have any means by which I can demonstrate an effect? I have had some help off of a researcher on this in England, and he's shown me that you can dangle a pendulum above the thing, and the thing will almost levitate. If imagine something swinging like this with this amount of motion, with my hand perfectly still. I can't keep it still because I'm moving a bit, but this much movement off of a hand like that.
Hmm.
I've filmed myself doing that. I've filmed a friend of mine doing it. So you can see a demonstrable effect on my channel of what I'm describing there.
Okay.
And to my eyes at least, it looks like something is propelling it and the guy is not moving it around on his own.
Sure. Yeah.
But could you identify any means by which I could demonstrate, look, here's a measurable sign of the Cloudbuster doing something?
Hmm. I don't know. I mean, I've never seen that happen. I've never seen. I've got a cloudbuster which I made a long time ago, and I don't know whether it loses power or whatever. I don't know, but I've got it in my allotment now because it's also really good for the plants. Draws down a lot of stuff. But I've also got I think it's called a translator. Have you heard of those? It was
Trans.
it there was a guy that followed on from the work of Reich, and um he made a translator which is apparently like far stronger than a cloudbuster in what it does. And I've got one, and I got it, and I joined a group, and it was to get rid of the lines in the sky that they shouldn't be putting. Um,
Chemtrails.
well, I didn't want to mention the word, but yes, now that you've
Oh,
mentioned it, those
sorry.
ones. Yeah, those lines in the sky.
Slap a
And
little, slap a little mute on there if you want. I won't be offended.
no, 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 no. I think we were talking at the same time. I mean, look, that word's used a lot now, but uh, it really was powerful. I would stick it out and it would just clear the skies. I haven't used it for ages. It's like, oh, for God's sake, I'd have to put it out every day. Every day I'd have to put it out. But certainly for looking at that, I don't know. I'll try it now that you've mentioned it. I've got a pendulum and I'll see whether I get any movement on mine.
Brilliant. Well, some pendulums work better than others, but yeah, I'd be surprised if you didn't find one that didn't tick that box. Some closing questions for you is there anyone in your life experiencing a type of constant or recurring pain that might benefit from one of these? And would you consider creating one and let me know the results?
I am absolutely definitely going to create one.
Ah,
There's no two ways about
fantastic.
it. I'll be creating one and I'll be using it at home, and I know some people who have constant pain, arthritic pain, and it would be nice to give it a go, you know. I mean, obviously we're in the world of what I call the world of woo-woo. This is woo-woo world, but I find people are a lot more open to these things, and certainly the people who watch this channel, everybody's open to that as well, you know. So it'll be interesting. And again, for anybody who's interested, if you're going to have a go and make it, feedback to me, and I can feedback to Phil, or you can feedback directly through his YouTube. Give it a go, and let's see. Let's get some more testimonials. The more, the better, really.
Yeah, well, it means the world to me, to be quite honest. I mean, I think it was 3 years ago, like late May to early June of 2023, I was suicidally depressed because I'd had a big falling out with somebody who was treating me horrifically, and then I think 3 out of 4 people took the side of an ugly, dumb Nazi sympathizer instead of taking my side.
Okay.
And that, I was not prepared for that, to be quite honest. And between the Polish girl getting me spirits up a bit and making time for me, and the fact that we discovered the old lady in Pakistan was using it for leg pain, the thought of going intercontinental lifted me spirits a lot. So I'd love for Spain to join in and be the fifth on our list, I think. I mean, England, Poland, Pakistan, States. Yeah, that you'd be fifth on the world stage to join up. So that would be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, well, let's see. I'll certainly, uh, you're going to give me the details. I'll have them in here. I'll have a look at the walkthrough and I'll make one. I like doing those sort of things.
Fabulous, fabulous. And they have any other? Oh yeah, audience. I would love to hear any news of Pain, whether it's a release of major Pain or release of something comparatively small. Please do keep me posted, and if you're at all willing, name the nation in which it was done or the state. I don't wish for anyone to dox themselves, just like for a rough idea.
Sure, sure, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure nobody will have a problem with that. Yeah. Okay, so let's get making them. Yeah, and if you do make them, for those who are in watching our channel, come to Peaceful Rebellion in Telegram and post your photos of what you've made. Let's see who gets the first photo of one of these. So what's the name of it? It's an orgonometer.
Orgonometer, that's the one.
Okay.
Sometimes referred to as an orgone accumulator.
Okay, that's the name that I know, but organometer is nice as well. Okay, Phil. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and your enthusiasm. I can see you're very enthusiastic about this, and thank you for the work that you're doing because you're helping people.
Yeah, Eldrin, thanks so much for having me. It's always uplifting when someone else joins in the movement or the research.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. And listen, let's plan on getting back together in a few months. Let's see. I'll get one made and we'll try it out, and then we'll maybe have some feedback and another chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I've got another major project coming up, the MWO by George Lakhovsky. Have you
Okay.
heard of it?
No.
I'll give you a very brief teaser. It was a sound-based medical device that was made to, via the use of sound, that being the body's language, would get your cells coordinated and teach them how best to outmatch a disease.
Ah, okay.
And I'm intent on creating one to help somebody who I care about deeply.
Okay. Lovely. That'd be really, I'd like to talk about that when you've got information. I'm going to show you something that I've got here.
Hi. Oh, I've got one of those. Yeah, that's a Rife device,
A
yeah?
life device, yeah. And
Yeah, there are heavy overlaps there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've got that as well. And I put that on sleep mode on a nighttime, 3 or 4, I think it is. And I'm sleeping all the way through. I used to go like 5 times to have a wee. And now I'm sleeping all the way through. It's absolutely wonderful.
Excellent, excellent. I should probably try and turn mine on and find out how to use it. Did that thing come with an instruction manual?
It hasn't. Well, yes, it did. He had to download it. But I've a good friend of mine, Vicky Cook. She sent me who she got it from a good friend of hers. She sent me a whole list of all of the frequencies. So I'll pass it on to you if you want.
Thanks. I need to learn how to turn it on, but I'll get some other people involved to help me because digital technology is a weak point of mine. I can
Right.
do, you know, electromagnetic medical sounds harder to do than digital, not to me.
Yeah. It's
I
not
can
that
have
difficult. It's quite easy. But you can find a tutorial if you put it on, go online. You'll find a tutorial, a video.
Brilliant. Well, before signing off, I want to say thank you so much. This has been everything I wanted it to be. And this is a long shot, but do you happen to be friends with any United States lawyers?
Not that I know of, but the people who watch your channel might. There are loads and loads of people from the US. Why do you need a lawyer?
That's a bit personal,
Oh, right.
but if
Okay.
any, forgive me, but if anyone ticks that box of knowing their way around US law and is disposed to help me, maybe because these things have improved your life, I'd like for someone to talk to me about it because with a little coordination and working on something I've had my eye on, we could get some major traction for these things. So that's an
Okay.
open invitation to anyone who ticks the box.
Okay, well, we'll put it out there and let's see then, Phil. All right, Phil. Well, thank you very much for your time. Well done for what you're doing, and we'll talk again, yeah, in the future.
Thanks so much. When do you estimate for this to come out?
This will come out next week.
Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks again. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, equally. Okay, super duper.